Thank you all for coming out and braving the chilly Alaskan temperatures. A little frost on the pumpkin this morning. It's more like frozen solid pumpkin. But welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living, and thank you for coming out today. And thank you to those who are watching on YouTube from the comfort of your home in your pajamas. We don't hold anything against you, but you just missed some of the really good stuff, that's all. If you're ever in this area during one of our services, I do invite you to come and be a part, and I guarantee you that we will do our best to make you feel right at home. So, welcome everyone. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
I think as we change the calendar and flip over, it's a good time for us to kind of look back at the previous year and see kind of the things that maybe were working in our lives, and maybe look at some of the things that weren't working so well in our lives, and give us an opportunity to reframe it and re-look at those. And one of our things that we really believe in is that we can change our experiences by changing our thinking, and this gives us an opportunity to do just that. I am reminded of the story of a family who had a long-standing tradition, a New Year's Eve dinner. Wasn't a giant party or anything, but they had a big family dinner. Everybody got together, and their tradition was that they would have a rib roast, a prime rib roast, and a beautiful meal for everyone. One year, as the lady was preparing her dinner and getting everything ready, she cut off the end of the roast. And her sister said, "You know, we do that every year. Why do we cut off the end of the roast?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. That's what Mom always did. That's why I do it." "Well, Mom's here. Let's ask her." So, "Mom, how's come we always cut off the end of the roast?" And Mom said, "I don't know. That's the way my mom taught me. It's the way I always did it." "Well, Granny's here this year. Let's ask Granny." So they called Granny in and they said, "Granny, why do we cut off the end of the roast?" And she said, "I don't know. It's the way I was always taught to do it. We did it from wherever." "Well, I guess that's what we do." Well, unfortunately, that year Granny passed away. And the daughters and granddaughters were going through some of Granny's stuff, and they found her old recipe box. And they were going through there, and there were just a wealth of information in some of these old recipes. And look at this, she's got the entire recipe for the New Year's Eve dinner. And they start looking there, and they look down, and it comes to the prime rib roast, and it looks, and it said on the thing, "Be sure to cut off the end of the prime rib roast so that it will fit in the pan that fits in our small oven." They had moved and got bigger ovens, and they didn't need to cut that, but had been doing it for years and years. It had been passed down from generation to generation. And I think sometimes we're like that. We get in things, we've just been doing the same thing year after year after year and getting the same results year after year after year, and we have a hard time figuring out why. And sometimes we don't stop and ask, why are we cutting off the end of the roast? As many of you know, the first part of the year, typically January, one year I did the first 10 weeks as I went through the 10 core concepts, but I like to look back at the core fundamentals, the basic tenets of science of mind. I call it back to basics. And regardless of what the title of this sermon is, I think today's is A New Year, A New You. But regardless of what it is, I like to at least incorporate some of the basic tenets of what we believe. And the point that I want to make this year, and this is, in my estimation, absolutely core to everything we believe, and that is that God is all of everything. That this infinite power, whatever name you choose to describe God, Spirit, Troward said the thing itself, which offended some people. How can you call God a thing? whatever you choose, higher power, Yahweh. It doesn't make any difference what the name is, but whatever this is, under most monotheistic religions, I think all monotheistic religions, this power, this presence, whatever it is indeed all powerful. It is indeed omnipresent. It is at every point in space, at every moment in time. It is all of everything, and it created all of everything. From the smallest atoms and subatomic particles, the grains of sand on the beach, to every star in the sky. All of those tiny, tiny points of light up there, some of which are entire universes of their own. This thing, whatever it is, created all of that. And the only place that it could create it from, it didn't come equipped with a bank of stuff to build from. I've got a joke about that. I think I've told it before. So it had to create it out of the only thing that it had, and the only thing that it has was itself. So everything that is was created from God's stuff. And since you are part of everything that is, everything that was, and everything that will be, you too are created of God's stuff. You have divine DNA within you. You are created from that God. You are created perfect exactly as you are. And it can't be any other way. Now, we can have free choice. We can make all kinds of bad decisions. We can do things wrong, everything else. But that divine influence is already there. That divine perfection is there, and it is never going to change. That divine presence is indeed all of absolutely everything. It was in Adolf Hitler. It was in Genghis Khan. It was in all of everything that we assume to be bad, and every serial killer that we judge as horrible. That divine presence was there. Everything in the entire universe. This morning our children are learning about animal totems, and as I went over, they have lessons that are really good. Mrs. Fleming does a great job. They're looking at animal totems, and I looked at one that I really was very, very interesting to me. Some indigenous people, when they prepare to go to war, they do not pray to their God, their spirit, whatever it is that they call it. They do not pray to that for victory or to vanquish their enemy or whatever, because they realize that that enemy, that opposing force, was created by the same God that created them. So what they do instead is they pray to the bear. They pray to the bear because the bear has the brute strength that they want to share in. The bear has this tough hide that allows it to be shot with arrows and still live. The bear has this innate ability to know which berries and roots to eat to facilitate healing. So they pray for those qualities instead of praying for victory or to vanquish their enemy. And I found that so powerful. That's so deep. And maybe we could learn from some of our indigenous people. Of course, when I have an issue, I always like to look up and see what Ernest Holmes had to say. And I came across this. This is a segment of a speech talk that he gave on New Year's Day in 1929. And it's way too long, but it's so good I'm going to do it anyway. We must come to realize that there is such a thing as spiritual energy, spiritual mind power, that each, in the sanctuary of his own heart and soul, may silently register the aspiration of his heart. And if he can induce his own mind to accept it, so shall the universe honor him. Then Holmes goes on to quote the author of the Gospel of Luke. For everyone that asketh, receiveth. And he that seeketh, findeth. And to him that knocketh, it shall be opened. Holmes goes on to say, it is impossible for it to fail. We may thus embark on the greatest adventure of the ages without arrogance, without fear, and I trust with the minimum of disbelief. And you and I, in embarking upon this great adventure, can we, by what we do in the silent sanctuary of our own contemplation, meditation, and prayer, see something happen in our world of experience as a result of what had not happened before, and prove that these signs shall and must follow them that believe? We don't have to continue cutting off the end of the roast. Or do we put the whole thing in reverse and in our pessimistic utterances repeat the old formula of fear and failure and doubt and uncertainty? Or do we remain in neutral while nothing happens? And this is for us to decide. The old year passes into the new and heralds the possibility of triumph, the triumph of the Spirit in us. But it cannot be done by the dictate of some external authority. It can only occur in our own consciousness, when faith shall triumph over fear, and love over hate, and compassion over unkindness. Or we could look at this a little bit differently and perhaps a little more modern vernacular, and I'll swipe from Stevie's song. Do you know she composed that? Awesome. Thank you. I had to shift my mind so my dreams chased me instead. Thought I had a vision, but I laid it all to rest. Truth is, I had to learn when to say yes. And now these dreams keep knocking. They keep knocking on my door, calling to my soul, dare to dream some more. Dare to dream some more. Swear these dreams been calling, now they knocking on my door. I can't run, I can't hide, I can't duck no more. How can I be scared of all that I've been praying for? Kind of what Holmes had to say, only a little more modern. There is a contributor to the Science of Mind magazine every month by the name of Rocco Errico. We've had him in Alaska twice. A brilliant man, and he is a student of ancient Aramaic, and he has translated the original scripts into English. And I think the thing that is so key about Rocco Errico is he spends a great deal of time getting the exact vernacular. He gets, the interpretation of what the meaning is behind this sentence, not a literal translation of what the Aramaic words say. And one of the things that he pointed out is that in ancient Aramaic, now remember, Aramaic was primarily a verbal language. It was only written much, much later, and it wasn't written very well. But in Aramaic, the word for love and the word for fear is the same word. The difference being only an inflection of the voice. Jacqueline can help me here. In Spanish, we can, the same words can either be a question or a statement. Tú eres blank or tú eres. And just by the inflection can change it. Well, this is the same thing, whether it was love or it was fear. And how do we know? Could we be just cutting off the roast and saying that God is fear when really all along the statement was that God is love? It's another story. I don't know if it's one of my jokes or not, but it was this idea that in one of the ancient manuscripts, it was discovered that there was a dot over a word, and it had been transcribed that way over and over and over for generations. That dot was never there. That was a spot of fly poop that got stuck on this ancient text. And did that change love to fear? Did it change the love of God to the fear of God? I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm old, but not that old. But what we must have is a vision. It's just like Stevie's song. We have got to have a vision of what it is we want, what it is we desire. If we're going to change that which we have had in the last year that didn't serve us, and we go to change our thinking around that, it helps if we have a mental mold, if we have an equivalent of what it is that we want, rather than just some blank desire for something better. We have to define what that something better is. I came across this article, and there were 20 of them. We don't have time to get them all today, but some of them were really humorous. But these are things that were predicted back at the turn of the century, the millennium change, or the decade before that. So it was either in the 90s or right before the year 2000. And they were what's going to happen in the next century or in the next 10 or 20 years. And a lot of those were centered around what would be the next 20 years. One of them was that life expectancy would be over 100 years old by 2019. Well, that didn't happen. But if you peel back kind of some of the layers of the onion and what this guy had predicted, he said by 2019 or 2020, there's going to be computerized monitors that we carry around with us like watches that will gauge the number of steps we take and how our heart's beating and all of these other things that are going on with our bodies. Think Fitbit. He said we're going to have clothing that can help regulate our body temperature, that can help regulate our health. Can we think bioscarves? And then, and I may ask Lisa and Linda for help here, but he talked about how there would be portable heart monitors, things that could help us in the future to prolong that life, and that's how we would reach that 100-year average life expectancy. And then I found out there's an app you can get on your phone for an EKG app on your phone. So maybe he missed the 100-year thing, but he had a lot of the components really, really right. Once again, more layers of the onion come off, and you look at some of the statistics worldwide, and worldwide in industrialized countries, that average age is continuing to go up, with one exception of one industrialized country that started going down 3 years ago. Could that have something to do with processed foods?
Yes.
Could that have something to do with
Absolutely.
vaping? Take all the teenagers. I mean, that drives the average life expectancy down. Number two, invisible computers. Another guy predicted by 2020 there would be invisible computers all over, and everybody, well, that's ridiculous. You can't have invisible computers. But in the 90s, computers were these giant things that had to be in atmospherically controlled rooms that had all of the, you couldn't have invisible computers. What are there? I think the average American car has 17 computers in it today. Everything in manufacturing today, programmable logic control, controls everything. Our street lights today. Years and years ago, we used to marvel at how they had synchronized street lights so the traffic would flow. That is so old school. I mean, all of our lights are controlled now by highly sophisticated computers that can do so much. Computers, we do have them all over in our houses. Look at our homes, from Alexa to you name it. One man predicted that by 2020 the world population would be 8 billion. We're not too far off. We're at 7.7 billion today. We're getting close. And there's one industrialized country who has really leveled off. China has stayed much more stable than they thought, and within the next few years, India is going to pass China as the most populous country on earth. So his guess of 8 billion probably wasn't too far off. Another man predicted that the global surface temperature will increase by 2020, and that he had some things done by 2100. That the surface temperature would increase 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which would create an increase in depth of the oceans by 20 inches. And we are exactly on track to do that. In the first fifth of that 100 years, we are right on track if we don't do something. To bring these 2 points together, when we are in alignment with that force, that power, that presence, spirit, things seem to get easier for us. That's when we can use that to our advantage. That's when we can use to change the things in 2020 that we didn't like so much about 2019. When we're in alignment, these good things can happen. When we can see that God is all there is, when we can actually see beyond the effect of anyone's actions, good, bad, see beyond that and recognize that even the horrible things that we see and experience is indeed the activity of God. When we can look beyond and recognize that our enemies are actually created by the same God that created us, then we can somehow magically have things work a lot better for us. Now, I'm not saying that every condition is going to be changed, that every war is going to end, that everything all of a sudden is going to be rosy in the world. But what I can absolutely promise is that when we move to that position where we can see the God in everything, we change. There's something profound that changes within us, and we experience more peace, more joy, a more fulfilled life. And we can step into that, and it all goes back to that basic principle of the science of mind, as that is, God is the source of everything that there is. Another story. This was a man, I can identify with this guy, watching a football game. It was New Year's Day, and he's watching his favorite bowl games, and his team happened to be playing. Boy, he was all excited to watch his team playing, and his little boy came up to him and says, "Daddy, can we play now?" Oh, and he loved playing with his boy, and he didn't get enough time for it. But man, this is, his team hadn't been to a bowl game in decades, and this was his big opportunity. He says, "Later, we'll play later. Why don't you go off and play and come back in about 30 minutes? We're about halfway through the fourth quarter, and I think in about 30 minutes we'll play then." 10 minutes later, the little boy is back. "Daddy, is it time yet? Can we play now?" "Oh," he says, "just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. That's really an exciting game, and just a little bit longer." 5 minutes later, the little boy's back. "Daddy." So Dad looks down, and on a coffee table in front of him, there is the day's newspaper, and on the front, there is a map of the world. And he got a bright idea. And so he took his little scissors and he cut up the map of the world. He cut the map of the world out, and then he cut it up, the big chunks. He was a little kid, and he cut it up into small enough pieces. And he said, "Now here, mix all these up, and you can go put the world together. And when you're done, then we'll go play." Well, the kid says, "Okay." Wow. 5 minutes later, the kid is back, and he's got the thing put together perfectly. And the guy's saying, "I'm some kind of a child prodigy. I mean, this kid, spatial relations and understanding the how can this be? This is incredible. How can this possibly be?" That's why he asked the little kid. He says, "How could you have done that?" He said, "It would have taken me at least 20 minutes, and I'm an adult." "Oh, look, that was easy, Daddy." He says, "On the back of the world was a picture of a person. So I put the person together, and that's when the world came together." You see, when you can recognize that person, when you can recognize God in all that is, things get easier. You can break that addiction that you've been fighting for decades. You can all of a sudden get the promotion that you've deserved and been passed over for. You can get that sales increase you've been working for so long. Or your daughter can meet that wonderful guy that you've always hoped would always happen for her. Things can just get a little easier in the world. So as we step into 2020 with perfect 2020 vision, we can bring with us a sense of success. We can come with a confidence that things are indeed already better, that our lives are more productive. Conclusion, what I want everybody to take away today. Let's take this new year to assess our beliefs and really question what we are thinking. Then we can look at the world through the lens of knowing that all is God. The conditions may change, but it may not. What is sure to change is you. You move from victim to victor. You move from one who is offended to one who is triumphant. When the person is put together, your world comes together. So I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me and just simply reaffirm and know and embrace this idea that God is indeed in, around, and through all of everything. It is in the lives of each and every one of us. That infinite power, that presence, is indeed the very foundation of all that is. It is the creator of all that is. So as we live and move and have our beings in this world and we fight the challenges of life and all of the things that come with living in this world, we can do so with the firm knowledge that we are not alone, that we are accompanied by that infinite presence that created not only us but all of everything. And we can rest assured that that infinite presence is for us and not against us, that it is for every one of our heart's desires. As we open up and express those heart's desires and we create that mental mold, we can experience that which enhances us. We no longer have to suffer from lack and limitation and not having enough because we live in an infinite universe. We no longer have to suffer through health challenges because we know that behind our physical health there is a perfection, an absolute perfection, because we've been created by that which is perfect. And for all those of us who feel disconnected, separated from God, separated from one another, we can simply know that the love of God is always there. And it is only for us to step up and open our hearts and open our minds and accept the very love of God. For that is who we are, beings of God, children of the Most High. And so we just give thanks. We give thanks for this thing called life. We give thanks for this new year, 2020, and the perfect vision that we hold for 2020. So we just give thanks, we let it go, we let it be, and so it is.